Queen Elizabeth's secret diary reveals some truly surprising details about Princess Diana's life and tragic death. These personal entries show a side of the royal family that few have ever seen. They talk about Diana's struggles, her fears, and the challenges she faced while trying to balance being a royal and staying true to herself. The diary gives us a new way of looking at what really happened behind closed doors, and it makes you wonder how much of Diana's story did we really know. Let's find out, because some details will shock you. Diana's life inside the palace was not as glamorous as it seemed. The diary talks about how she had a hard time fitting into the strict royal rules. She wanted to be herself, but the royal family had their own way of doing things. They expected her to follow tradition, act a certain way, and always put the crown first. But Diana was different. She cared deeply about people, wanted to connect with them, and wasn't afraid to show her emotions. From the start, it was clear that Diana and the royal family saw things differently. The diary reveals how the Queen noticed the tension growing early on. Diana was young and full of energy, but the royal lifestyle was demanding. She was expected to be perfect, but deep down, she was struggling. The diary suggests that the Queen saw the challenges Diana was facing long before the media did. One of the most heartbreaking parts of the diary talks about Diana's struggles with her mental health. She battled issues like bulimia and anxiety, and she often felt alone. The Queen's words show a mix of concern and distance. The royal family was not used to talking about emotions openly, and Diana's struggles didn't fit into their way of life. They believed in keeping things private, but Diana needed support and understanding. And then there were her fears. The diary describes moments where Diana felt like she was being watched and controlled. She worried about who she could trust and who might be working against her. She even feared for her safety. Whether these fears were real or just thoughts running through her mind, one thing is clear: Diana did not feel safe. She wanted to protect her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, from the pressures she faced every day. Her bond with her children was one of the strongest parts of her life. Diana did everything she could to give them a normal childhood. She took them to places regular kids went, let them wear casual clothes, and encouraged them to see life beyond the palace walls. But this wasn't easy. The royal family had a certain way of raising children, and Diana's modern approach didn't always sit well with them. The diary suggests that the Queen admired Diana's love for her sons, but also found it challenging to balance tradition with change. Diana's tragic death is another part of the diary that raises many questions. The words written by the Queen show a deep sense of sadness and confusion. There are no clear answers, no pointing fingers, but there is a strong feeling that something about Diana's death didn't add up. It's almost as if even the Queen herself felt that the whole story was never fully told. The media played a huge role in Diana's life and in her death. The diary talks about how the press followed her every move, making it impossible for her to live a normal life. They made her one of the most famous women in the world, but they also put her under constant pressure. Diana's fame brought attention to important causes, but it also made her a target for rumors and criticism. The Queen's words suggest that the royal family saw the media as both a friend and an enemy, something they needed but could never fully control. Diana's charity work is another big topic in the diary. She was passionate about helping people, and she wasn't afraid to step outside of royal traditions to do it. Whether it was working with AIDS patients, comforting the sick, or walking through dangerous minefields, Diana did things her way. The Queen respected her efforts, but there was always a concern about how this would affect the royal family's carefully planned image. The royal family had always kept a distance from personal involvement, but Diana's approach was much more hands-on. One of the most interesting things in the diary is the difference between what people saw in public and what was really happening behind the scenes. The royal family always appeared to be united, but the truth was much more complicated. Diana brought something fresh and modern to the monarchy, but not everyone was ready for change. The Queen's reflections show that she understood Diana's impact, but at times it was hard to accept. Towards the later entries, the Queen writes about Diana's lasting influence. It's clear that over time she realized how much Diana changed the way people viewed the royal family. Diana's kindness, honesty, and openness made people feel connected to her in a way they never had with other royals. The Queen seems to acknowledge that Diana's approach was something the monarchy needed, even if it came with challenges. The diary also talks about how Diana refused to just sit quietly and do what was expected of her. She wanted to use her voice and her position to make a real difference. She spoke out about issues that mattered, from mental health to social injustices, and she wasn't afraid to break the rules to do it. But this made things difficult within the royal household. Some saw her as a breath of fresh air, while others felt she was disrupting long-held traditions. Reading through these diary entries, you get the sense that the Queen had mixed feelings about Diana. There was admiration but also frustration. There was love but also a sense of duty that often came first. It's clear that Diana's life wasn't easy and her efforts to bring change weren't always welcomed. The Queen's words about Diana's final days are especially emotional. There's a feeling of loss, of things left unsaid, and of regrets that can never be fixed. The diary suggests that Diana's death left a hole that could never be filled, not just in her sons' lives, but in the royal family as a whole. As you go through these hidden pages, it's hard not to wonder, how different could things have been if Diana had been given more support? Could she have found the happiness she was looking for? The diary doesn't answer these questions, but it makes you think about her struggles behind the palace doors. One of the most heartbreaking parts of the diary focuses on Diana's battle with mental health. The Queen's words show both concern and a sense of helplessness. Diana didn't hide her struggles. She spoke openly about her feelings of depression and her battle with an eating disorder. This was something the royal family wasn't used to dealing with. Talking about mental health was rare in high society, and Diana's honesty made people uncomfortable. At the time, issues like bulimia and anxiety were often swept under the rug, especially within royal circles. Diana's openness forced the monarchy to face these problems, even though they weren't ready for it. The diary suggests that there was a lot of resistance to addressing these issues, and it wasn't easy for Diana to find the support she needed. She wanted understanding, but instead, she often felt judged or misunderstood. The diary also gives insight into the complicated relationships within the royal family. There were many unspoken rules, and expectations were high. Diana was seen as an outsider, someone who didn't fit the mold. Her warmth and kindness made people love her, but it also created tension behind the scenes. Some members of the family admired her, while others saw her as a problem. According to the Queen's writings, Diana's unique approach to royal life was both inspiring and frustrating for those around her. One of the most striking entries talks about Diana's dreams of leaving royal life behind. She wanted a fresh start, to raise her boys in a more relaxed and loving environment. The diary hints that Diana considered moving abroad, hoping to give her sons a sense of freedom away from royal duties. But this idea was met with doubt and concern within the palace. Leaving wasn't as simple as it seemed. There were responsibilities, expectations, and a deep connection to the crown that couldn't be easily broken. Even after Diana's tragic passing, the diary reveals how the royal family struggled to deal with the overwhelming public response. The outpouring of grief shocked them. People around the world mourned Diana like she was family. The Queen's writings show that this reaction forced the monarchy to rethink how they connected with the public. They realized they couldn't ignore emotions anymore. Diana had set a new standard, and people expected more from them. The diary also touches on Diana's relationships outside the palace walls. The Queen's perspective offers a different view of Diana's personal life, especially her romantic relationships. They were often a source of happiness for Diana, but they also brought more media attention and scrutiny. Every move she made was watched, and every relationship was analyzed. The diary suggests that Diana longed for genuine love and connection, but struggled to find it under the constant public spotlight. Throughout the diary, it becomes clear that Diana's insistence on being real and open clashed with the royal family's need for control and tradition. She wanted to show the world who she truly was, but the monarchy preferred a more polished, distant image. This difference in approach created constant tension, and the diary reflects the challenges of balancing authenticity with duty. The diary also gives a glimpse into the way power worked within the palace. Influence wasn't always about who spoke the loudest, it was about quiet, behind-the-scenes decisions. The Queen's words hint at a complex system where things weren't always what they seemed. Diana, with her straightforward and emotional way of dealing with things, found it hard to navigate this world. And then the diary reaches the most painful part, Diana's final hours. Even after nearly 30 years, questions still surround the tragic night of her death. The official story says the crash was caused by speeding and the paparazzi, but many people aren't convinced. The diary doesn't provide clear answers, but it raises the same questions the world has been asking for years. Why was there no security footage? From that night, Diana was one of the most photographed women in the world, constantly followed by cameras. Yet, there is no video showing what happened inside the tunnel where she lost her life. The lack of footage has left many wondering if there's more to the story than what was officially reported. And what about the driver, Henri Paul? He was the acting head of security at the Ritz Hotel in Paris, but he wasn't a professional chauffeur. The diary mentions how strange it was that he volunteered to drive that night. Reports say he was heavily intoxicated, with alcohol levels 3 times the legal limit. But those who knew him claimed he wasn't a heavy drinker. Some even said he didn't seem drunk before getting into the car. This raises more doubts. Was it really just an accident, or was something else going on? What's even more unsettling is that Diana herself had spoken about her fears before she died. She told close friends that if anything ever happened to her in a car, it wouldn't be an accident. She even wrote a letter expressing her concern that someone might be trying to harm her. The diary mentions these fears, but doesn't confirm if they were real threats or just anxieties that came from the pressure she was under. Diana's relationship with Prince Charles is also highlighted in the diary. Their marriage, which many thought was a fairy tale, was filled with pain and disappointment. Charles's longtime relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles made things even harder for Diana. She felt lonely and unloved, and it took a toll on her mental health. The media's constant focus on their troubled marriage only made things worse. By 1992, they had separated, and their divorce was finalized in 1996. For Diana, it was a chance to finally live life on her own terms, but that freedom came with new challenges. On the night of August 31, 1997, Diana and her boyfriend, Dodi Fayed, tried to avoid the paparazzi by leaving the Ritz Hotel through a back exit. They got into a Mercedes with Dodi's bodyguard and driver, hoping to reach his apartment safely. But the high-speed chase that followed ended in disaster. The car crashed into a pillar in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. Henri Paul and Dodi Fayed died instantly. Diana was still alive but seriously injured. Reports say she was conscious for a while before passing away from internal injuries. The only survivor was the bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, who suffered severe injuries and had no memory of what happened. Photographers were some of the first people at the crash scene. Instead of helping, some of them took pictures of the wreckage. Their actions were widely criticized, and several were even arrested, though they were later released without charges. The chaos surrounding the crash only added to the growing suspicions about what really happened that night. Eyewitnesses claimed they saw the car speeding through the tunnel with paparazzi close behind on motorcycles. Many believe their relentless pursuit forced the driver to speed up, creating a dangerous situation. After the crash, police seized film rolls from photographers, but to this day, people question what those images truly show and whether they held clues to what really happened in Diana's final moments. Years later, a major investigation called Operation Paget was launched in the UK to look into the many theories surrounding Diana's death. Investigators explored over 175 different claims, including shocking rumors that she might have been pregnant with Dodi Fayed's child. Some believed this news angered the royal family and created tension behind the scenes. However, medical reports from the hospital found no proof that Diana was expecting, putting that theory to rest. Another rumor that gained attention was the idea that Diana and Dodi were about to get engaged. Dodi had purchased a ring just before their trip to Paris, sparking speculation. But Diana's close friends later said that while she cared for him, she wasn't planning to marry him. This claim left many wondering if their relationship was truly serious or just a phase in Diana's search for happiness. The role of the driver, Henri Paul, remains one of the biggest mysteries. Official reports said he was highly intoxicated that night, with alcohol levels well above the legal limit, but those who spoke to him before he got into the car insisted he showed no signs of being drunk. This raised serious questions. If he was truly impaired, why was he allowed to drive such important people? Adding to the mystery, investigators found large amounts of money in his bank accounts, leading to speculation that he might have been paid to create a dangerous situation. Some even suggested that intelligence agencies could have been involved, but there was never any solid proof to support those claims. One of the strangest pieces of evidence was a mysterious white Fiat Uno spotted in the tunnel around the time of the crash. Investigators found paint marks from the Fiat on Diana's car, suggesting there was contact before the collision. Police tracked down the car's owner, a security guard, who denied any involvement. But reports claimed he repainted the car soon after the accident, which only fueled more suspicions. Was it just a coincidence, or was something more sinister at play? Another chilling detail came from witnesses who claimed to have seen a bright flash of light at the tunnel's entrance just before the crash. Some believed this flash might have blinded the driver, causing him to lose control of the vehicle. However, official investigations dismissed this theory, saying such a flash would have affected other drivers in the tunnel as well, but none reported seeing it. Perhaps the most unsettling part of Diana's story is that she had predicted her own death. She had told close friends that if anything happened to her in a car crash, it would not be an accident. She even wrote a note in which she expressed fears that someone might try to tamper with her vehicle's brakes. In her note, she mentioned concerns about Prince Charles and believed that forces within the palace might want to silence her. Some brushed off her fears as paranoia, but when she died in a car crash just as she had feared, people couldn't ignore the eerie similarities. Adding to the confusion, none of the 14 security cameras along the route leading to the tunnel were recording that night. The lack of footage has remained one of the biggest mysteries for a woman who was constantly in the public eye. It seemed unbelievable that there was no video evidence of her final moments. This missing footage has led many to believe that something was being hidden. Diana's concerns about being spied on were also well known. She often requested security checks of her home, fearing that she was being watched. Once, an unusual signal was detected near her bedroom, but it disappeared the next day. This made her even more convinced that every move was being monitored. Even the decisions made by the first responders that night have raised questions. Instead of taking Diana to the nearest hospital, they drove her to a different facility, citing the need for specialized care. Some people believe she could have survived if she had been treated sooner, while others think the medical response was appropriate given the severity of her injuries. Despite the findings of multiple investigations, many still question the official explanation that the crash was simply the result of reckless driving and the pursuit by paparazzi. The royal family has always maintained that there was no foul play, but doubts continue to linger. Some believe that Diana's growing influence and outspoken nature made her a threat to powerful forces, while others think it was nothing more than a tragic accident. After Diana's death, her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, were left to face the overwhelming grief under the public spotlight. They were just 15 and 12 years old at the time. The royal family stayed at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, away from the media frenzy, allowing the boys to grieve in private. But many criticized the family's decision, calling it cold and distant. Eventually, the Queen returned to London and addressed the nation, but for some, it was too little, too late. The funeral was one of the most emotional moments in recent history. Millions watched as William and Harry walked behind their mother's coffin, alongside Prince Charles, Prince Philip, and Diana's brother, Earl Spencer. The sight of the two young boys grieving in public broke hearts around the world. Harry later admitted that it was something no child should have to go through, but he understood the importance of honoring his mother's memory. Diana left behind not just memories, but also a financial legacy for her sons. Her estate, initially valued at $21 million, was reduced to around $13 million after taxes and expenses. Most of it was placed in a trust for William and Harry, which they inherited when they turned 30. Over time, wise investments grew the fund, and both princes received substantial inheritances. They also inherited sentimental items, such as Diana's jewelry and personal letters. In a touching gesture, William gave his mother's engagement ring to Kate Middleton when he proposed, keeping Diana's memory alive. Diana's influence continues to shape her sons' lives. William has focused his efforts on mental health, homelessness, and environmental causes, while Harry has taken a more personal approach, working on veterans' issues and mental health awareness. Both have carried on their mother's compassionate legacy in their own ways. Even in their personal lives, Diana's presence is felt. William and Kate, now the Prince and Princess of Wales, make sure their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, know about their grandmother. They write cards to her on special occasions, keeping her memory alive. Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, also honor Diana by naming their daughter Lilibet Diana, a tribute to both the Queen and their late mother. Through their work and their families, Diana's legacy lives on. Her kindness, courage, and compassion continue to inspire people all over the world. Was Diana's legacy a gift or a burden for her family? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with more thought-provoking content.